This last 24 hours has been Australia's worst through this pandemic so far. 25 people have died. So many people in Victoria right now dealing with the loss of loved ones. The brutal reality of this virus is heartbreaking. Reporter Stephanie Ferrier joins us live now from Melbourne. Steph, so tough for so many people there right now.
It's just heartbreaking, isn't it, Joe, to hear that another 25 families out there are mourning the loss of their loved ones, and many, of course, would have had a really hard time not even being able to say goodbye in person just due to the COVID restrictions that we have here and the really big infection controls that are in the hospitals as well. So it's just really devastating news to have such a high death toll in the space of one day. We've had 107 people die in the space of a week, and our death toll here in Victoria is now up to 334, sadly. So it is just awful news. Of course, yesterday we heard that there were some 664 people in hospital, with 40 in ICU or intensive care, and 29 of those were on a ventilator. So we were always warned by authorities that because of the lag effect and the lagging nature of this really nasty, pernicious virus, that we were going to see those death numbers continue to rise, even though the case numbers are starting to come down, thankfully. I mean, there is a small amount of hope here today that we only have 282 new cases detected in the last 24 hours. So that's dipping again for the second day in a row below the 300 mark, which is good news for us in terms of the hard yards that Victorians are doing in regional areas in stage 3, and of course those really tough stage 4 lockdowns that we've got here. So just a quick calculation in terms of the 7-day average, we're now down to 322 for the 7-day average, and that is compared with just 7 days prior to that, which was up at 467. So you can see that we really are starting to go down on that downhill trend. But gee, those death numbers are really hard to take, aren't they, Joe?
They are indeed. And Steph, tonight the Four Corners program on ABC is taking an in-depth look at what went wrong with hotel quarantine in Victoria. Who has Four Corners spoken to?
Yes, so of course the botched hotel quarantine system is really being blamed for this deadly second wave and the massive lockdowns that we're seeing here in Victoria. And the Four Corners investigators spoke to the Australian Medical Association, and they've revealed that they actually sent a letter to the Health Department here in Victoria 1 month before these contracted workers started coming down with COVID-19 in the hotel quarantine system. Now, they said that they outlined what they believed was important to have really proper infection control protocols, including hospital-grade protective equipment that these security guards could wear, as well as really extensive training for staff. Now, the AMA's president here, Julian Raitt, says that unfortunately he never heard back in writing from the Health Department at all, and he was also concerned that they didn't appear to be quite as keen on or as carefully considerate of those infection control protocols that he was outlining, which he said that he was really disappointed that he also didn't hear back from them. Now, he wasn't the only medico that had expressed some concerns. We also heard on the Four Corners program from Christine Cox, and she was a nurse who was actually in quarantine. She's from Queensland, but served out her quarantine in the Ridges Hotel, which is where the first couple of cases actually emanated from, amongst staff and contracted security guards there. And she was explaining how she was really concerned about some of the cleanliness at that hotel and also infection protocols. Let's have a listen to what she had to say.
The guards that didn't have their gowns on would be wearing gloves and masks, but that doesn't necessarily protect you. If you rub your face with a gloved hand and then after the glove is off, you scratch again, put it in your mouth, near your nose, you're away. There goes your infection. And it takes a mindset and an education to understand the nuances of non-transfer of pathogens.
The Health Department here in Victoria has not responded to the ABC's questions about that AMA warning letter sent a month prior to some of these breakouts of infections. And you can see the whole story on Four Corners tonight.
And Steph, what's happening today with that state government inquiry into hotel quarantine?
Yeah, so this is the independent inquiry, Joe, that was set up to look at what errors could have been made and how this infection and this virus could have got out of the hotel quarantine system and into the general community, sparking this second wave. Now, the former Judge Jennifer Coate, of course, you'll remember, had to delay this independent inquiry because of those tough stage 4 lockdowns. So today's evidence is the first time we're hearing some evidence from witnesses, and that will be heard entirely online to abide by those tough restrictions. Now, for the first time, we're going to be hearing from some of these epidemiologists, going into some of the detailed breakdowns, as well as infection control experts, as well as later in the week we are expecting to hear from people who actually worked in this hotel quarantine system, so those contracted security guards, as well as hearing from international travellers who returned and went through the quarantine system. So they'll be giving their insights as to what they saw in those early days. So there'll be plenty for the ex-Judge Jennifer Coate to sort through and try and get to the bottom of exactly what went wrong here in Victoria.
And so, Steph, just before we leave you, there'll be a lot of interest in that Victorian media conference today with this really sad news that 25 people have died in the past 24 hours. We usually expect that at 11 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. Have you got a fixed time on that yet, or do we have any idea when that's happening?
We still don't have a notification from the Premier's office yet, Joe, so obviously we'll be waiting very keenly to get some breakdown on those numbers today.
Yep, okay, Steph Ferry reporting there from Melbourne.